It's not me, Mick. Everybody knows that the regime is toxic, but that doesn't mean that you just go in there and whatever you do is okay.
Let me tell you this. I'm old enough to remember Vietnam very, very vividly and see what we did there. Also in Afghanistan and Iraq and wars of mass, weapons of mass destruction, on and on and on. We've seen we're not good at leaving.
Right then, so we're about to watch Chris Cuomo absolutely corner Mick Mulvaney, and I genuinely cannot wait for this. Because look, Trump's Iran policy was a disaster, wrapped in a catastrophe, wrapped in whatever foreign policy chaos you want to call it. We're talking about the Strait of Hormuz here, one of the most critical shipping lanes on the planet, where roughly 20% of the world's oil passes through daily. And the strategic decisions made during that administration? Allegedly just vibes and threats with no coherent plan. Mulvaney, remember him? Acting chief of staff who accidentally admitted on live television that they withheld Ukraine aid for political reasons and then tried to walk it back? That Mick Mulvaney. Now he's supposedly going to defend this mess. If you're watching this, make sure you subscribe because this is about to get very interesting very quickly.
But Mick, help me for a second, and then Joe can weigh in on this. Take us inside the mindset, okay? You say this new guy in Iran is much better for us. He wants the ceasefire. Then he puts out that letter that is a total rant that undercuts any notion that this guy is anything better for us or how he sees the regime is any different. What does that mean about what you say tonight?
Yeah, Chris, if you're talking about the letter that the Iranian president sent to us, I'm not sure why you're giving it any credibility at all. I mean, even if you don't like Donald Trump, and I know a lot of folks don't, do you really trust any Iranian leader more than that? I read the letter.
No, the president told me to trust him. The president told me to trust him, Mick. The president said he's different and he wants to make a deal and we're working with the right people.
He's not
different. This is the guy.
Listen, Keith Kellogg was on this network in the previous show with Elizabeth Vargas, and he said, look, he supports the president as much as anybody. There's no regime change here. Replacing Hitler with Himmler is not regime change. I hope Donald Trump does not make that case tonight that there is actual regime change here. No one believes that. No one who understands what's happening in Iran believes that. I hope he focuses on the things that actually matter, which is what's happening next. How are the straits going to open? How are we going to avoid $200 a barrel oil? How are we going to avoid the economic catastrophe that comes from that? You know, cutting and running now is not the way to do this. If Trump comes out tonight and says, we're leaving the straits because the Europeans have to take care of it and the Chinese have to take care of it, understand what that means. That means we are putting our economic well-being in someone else's hands. And the Europeans might choose not to try to do it, or they might try to do it and fail. And what is going to happen to our economy if that's the case? I hope there's some new messaging tonight. I hope there's some new explanations about what we're going to do going forward. Claim victory all you want to. Go ahead, claim regime change if you want to, even though I don't think anybody believes that. What's the plan? I don't need the strategic details. Just give me confidence that we are going to, that the end of, that there's light at the end of this tunnel.
Joe,
Chris,
how do you deal with the fact that the Strait was okay before this?
Chris, I always felt this. If you break it, you own it. If you break it, you own it. You better fix it. And that means you need all hands on deck to do that. So for us walking away thinking it's someone else's problem, it's not the responsible thing. It's not the realistic thing to do. I'm hoping we can get our act together. I'm hoping that the president has had a deal with the Gulf states, that they're going to do their part. I mean, we've done one heck of a job for them trying to clean up that mess with Iran. I don't fault the president for doing what he did. But if he hasn't made a deal with the Gulf states to come in and now help run the place, keep it clean, it'll go back to where it was. If you don't have the Israelis, who are the best in the world at going in and finding that enriched uranium, if there is enriched uranium, to make sure they are not in a bond-making capability. Those type of things have to happen. Doesn't have to happen with our men and women on that ground shedding their blood. That's what people don't want. But I want him to finish it. I've said this, everybody should want your president to succeed. And those of us, whether we're in the Senate and the House, as Mick and I have been, whether you're in the judicial branch, where the Supreme Court is, you know, we want to work with the president. We just don't work for the president. And people have to understand that. Do your job. You can be respectful and respectfully disagree if you can be helpful in what you're suggesting to fix things. Just don't keep tearing them down because they might be on the other side of the aisle. There should only be one aisle, and that's the American aisle. We've got to come together.
I'm with you. I'm with you. I feel like, not you guys specifically, but I hear this a lot. And I feel like, what are you pointing at me for? It's the president who defines everything through his own interests. It's not me, Mick. Everybody knows that the regime is toxic, but that doesn't mean that you just go in there and whatever you do is okay. I mean, that's my concern about this. You don't have to work hard to convince people that the regime in Iran is toxic. No kidding. But the Strait of Hormuz was open before this. Now it is closed. And now you have a regime that seems to still be in place that wants to kill us more than ever.
And he's got to explain how that changes. Because again, if you don't have real regime change, if you don't have control of the straits, is it really over? I think the biggest fear that people have tonight is that Donald Trump lays out a plan for leaving before the job is finished. I'm with Senator Manchin on this. I actually defended the
I think the fear is that he's going to put boots on the ground and we never get out, Mick.
Oh, that was beautiful. That was absolutely beautiful. Did you see what just happened there? Cuomo literally said, the president told me to trust him, Mick, and Mulvaney had nowhere to go. Nowhere. Because here's the thing. Mulvaney knows. He knows this is indefensible. You can see it in how he immediately pivots to, well, do you trust Iran more than Trump? That's not an answer. That's deflection dressed up as patriotism. And what kills me is Mulvaney talking about economic catastrophe and $200 a barrel oil like, mate, who created this situation? The strait was open before. Cuomo said it directly, and Mulvaney couldn't refute it because it's true. You don't get to light the house on fire and then lecture everyone about fire safety. This is the same man who, as acting chief of staff, reportedly admitted to a quid pro quo with Ukraine on national television. The same man who served 3 overlapping roles in that administration because apparently nobody else wanted the job. And now he's on television wringing his hands about responsible governance? The cognitive dissonance is staggering. He's essentially saying, I hope there's a plan, while defending the people who should have had a plan from day one. That's not analysis. That's cope. And notice how even Joe Manchin, who's about as centrist as they come, had to gently remind everyone that you can want the president to succeed while also acknowledging when things are broken. The if you break it, you own it framing. That's the whole point Mulvaney keeps dodging.
I think the fear is the opposite. Nobody's looking to get in deeper, to stay longer.
Yeah, that's a good point, Chris. But it's between the two, leaving now, and I think if he does put troops on the ground in there, it will be in a very, very limited fashion. I do not see a full-scale engagement here. I do not see a long-term engagement. I don't see the next Vietnam or Afghanistan. That's not how Donald Trump thinks. As between leaving now and staying forever, he would choose to leave now.
I hear you.
But he might choose to put some folks on the ground for a short period of time.
I don't think there is no short period. Let me tell you this. I'm old enough to remember Vietnam very, very vividly and see what we did there. Also in Afghanistan and Iraq and wars of weapons of mass destruction, on and on. We've seen we're not good at leaving. We've never been good at getting out. And I know the president would not want to be in. I know if he does go in, he would like to get out quick. I don't think that's capable, or he's capable of doing that. And Mick, the reason I say that, you know him as well, better than I do, but I know him well too. If we lose any of our men and women in a fight, truly a fight, in a war, he's going to say, we're not leaving now until we clean every one of them out. And you're never going to defeat an ideology. You're never going to defeat that ideology.
Well, no you'll never defeat it like this. The way you do it is with a coalition and pressure, soft and hard power, motivating the people there. It's very hard. That's why we've never been good at it. Joe, I got to jump. Senator, thank you very much. Mick, thank you very much. We'll be right back.
And there it is. There it is right there. Cuomo just laid it out plain as day. And Mulvaney actually agrees with him. Did you catch that? You'll never defeat it like this. Even Mulvaney can't argue with the fundamental premise that unilateral military action doesn't defeat ideology. Coalition building does. Soft and hard power together does. Everything this administration supposedly rejects as weak or globalist actually works. But here's what really gets me about this whole exchange. We just watched a former acting chief of staff essentially admit that the strategy his boss is pursuing has no viable endgame. He's sitting there saying, I don't see Vietnam or Afghanistan, while simultaneously acknowledging that if American soldiers die, Trump will escalate. Those two things cannot coexist. That's not a plan. That's wishful thinking dressed up as foreign policy. And let's talk about what this actually means for people at home, because this isn't abstract geopolitics happening in a vacuum. When you destabilize the Strait of Hormuz, you're playing with roughly 20% of the world's oil supply. Every barrel that gets harder to ship translates directly into higher prices at petrol stations across America. Working families paying more to fill their tanks because of reckless posturing halfway around the world. The thing that progressive and center-left foreign policy actually gets right is this understanding that stability benefits everyone. You build coalitions not because it's nice or feels good, but because it distributes risk and creates accountability. When allies are invested in outcomes, they help maintain them. When you go it alone, you own every single consequence. Cuomo nailed it when he said, "We've never been good at leaving." Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iraq. The pattern is always the same. Confident entry and messy, prolonged extraction that costs lives and treasure for decades. And now, we're watching the setup for that exact same playbook, while former administration officials shrug and say, well, I hope it works out. I keep coming back to something Joe Manchin said earlier about breaking things and owning them. Because that's the conversation America should be having. Not whether Iran is trustworthy, but whether the people making these decisions have any credibility left to gamble with. Mulvaney sat in that White House. He knows how decisions get made there. And the best he can offer is, I don't think it'll be that bad. That's not reassurance. That's resignation. What we're witnessing is the real-time consequences of foreign policy built on impulse rather than strategy, built on domestic political considerations rather than genuine national interest. And the people who will pay the price aren't the ones making the choices. They never are. Look, I know I've been going hard today, but this stuff matters. It matters because the pattern keeps repeating and accountability keeps evaporating. The same voices that cheered on intervention pivot seamlessly to nobody could have predicted this when it falls apart. We've seen this film before, multiple times. Right then. If you made it this far, you're clearly invested in actually understanding what's happening rather than just consuming talking points. Smash that subscribe button if you haven't already, because we're going to keep breaking this down. And speaking of people getting absolutely taken apart on television, you need to watch what happened when a British professor went up against one of these MAGA mouthpieces on Piers Morgan's show. The entire panel was visibly amused watching this absolute masterclass in humiliation. Trust me, it's worth your time. Links right there. Until next time, stay sharp out there.